Hi, I'm Paul Silga. I've been Learning 7 IVMasters.com, and today we're looking at the 17th question from Digital SAT Test 2, Module 2B. This is the harder set of reading and writing questions. Number 17 reads, which choice completes its text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? Whenever you see that specific question, you want to look at the answer choices first. Because that's going to tell you, you want to ask yourself questions based on what the answer choices say. So for example, notice answer choice C, it has a colon. So whenever you have a colon, you want to read up to that colon and see if it can be its own sentence. Because one rule that students typically are not aware of is that you need an independent clause for the colon. So I'm going to read up to and including marriage and see if that's an independent clause. Nigerian author Bushi Emecheta's celebrated literary oeuvre includes the Joys of Motherhood, a novel about the changing roles of women in the 1950s, Lagos, a kind of marriage. It seems like it just cuts off. So if you identify anything that is not an independent clause before, then you can eliminate it. All right, now we've got our semicolon. How's semicolon usually used? When you see a semicolon in the answer choice, you want to say, hey, is there an independent clause before and after? So I'm going to read it up to and including Lagos, as we see in answer choice B and D. Nigerian author Bushi Emecheta's celebrated literary oeuvre includes Joys of Motherhood, a novel about the changing roles of women in the 1950s Lagos. There's not an independent clause before there. But if you read the whole sentence, you might notice something. There's another semicolon right here. So here's a quote-unquote tip or trick. Kind of hate tips or tricks because they don't really involve learning, but if you see another semicolon already in a sentence, then choose the answer choice with the semicolon. Now we have two answer choices with the semicolon, so you have to decide between them. So then you have to ask yourself, do you have a comma after marriage or do you not have a comma after marriage? But I'm really going to break this down and show you not only that you do need the semicolon, even though there's not an independent clause before it, but also exactly how you would use it in this context. So another use for the semicolon that's not as nearly as often tested on SAT, it's about 15% of the questions in my very unscientific study. 15% of the semicolon questions will test the semicolon being used in a list. When you use a semicolon in a list? Well, if you've got a list of things and you've got a comma within at least one item of that list, then you need a semicolon, which would show a stronger break to separate the items in the list. So let's break it down. We're going to see that there's a list. We're going to see that there's three parts of the list. I'm going to read the whole sentence, and I'm going to notate the first word in each part of the list. So we've got Nigerian author Bushi Emecheta, celebrated literary oeuvre, includes the Joys of Motherhood. So the first part of the list starts right here. We're saying what it includes. Number one, Joys of Motherhood, novel about changing roles of women in the 1950s Lagos. And then number two, second item in the list, is a kind of marriage, comma, a television play about the private struggles of a newlywed couple in Nigeria. And number three is Head Above Water, her autobiography. So here what you notice is it gives the title, comma, description, title, comma, description, title, comma, description. So we do need the semicolon to show the stronger break, because if we just had commas, then it'd be like, hey, this the description now about the changing roles of women in the 1950s, Lagos, does that belong to the Joys of Motherhood or kind of marriage? And a kind of marriage, is that described by a novel about the changing roles in the 1950s, Lagos, or is that a television play about the private struggles of a newlywed couple in Nigeria? It'll be a little confusing. So what we have is title, comma, description, Joys of Motherhood, comma, novel about changing roles of women in the 1950s, Lagos. And then we've got the second item in the list, a kind of marriage is a title. And what's the description? Television play about private struggles of a newlywed couple in Nigeria. And then the third thing is Head Above Water, and that description is her autobiography. Notice this is the only time you use semicolon with an and. You use the semicolon or the and when you're combining two independent clauses. So Do you pause after a kind of marriage? Well, look, Joys of Motherhood, comma, head above water, comma. So yes, you'd say a kind of marriage, comma. So we do need the semicolon, that's why A is wrong. So B has the semicolon, and it also has the comma after marriage. And choice D does not have the comma after marriage. So that is going to be wrong. Thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, click like. You share it with someone who has trouble with semicolons, particularly semicolons being used in a list. Is there any question you'd like to answer from any official SAT or ACT? Leave that in the comments section. We have a video on it. Click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Nail that bell button. We've got classes and private tutoring that start all the time. And if you have any questions you'd like to see answered from any official SAT or ACT, leave that in the comments. We have a video on it. And have a great day.